Okay, so let's talk about calculating ROI. And we're going to first start out by explaining what ROI is. We're then going to talk about the two types of things that you need to calculate, tangible versus intangible uh, things, features, value. And then we're going to go through how to calculate some of the tangible ones. And then we're going to go to questions. So what is ROI? Actually, it's quite simple formula. It's the value of the feature minus the cost of the feature over the cost of the feature, which creates a ratio between profit over cost. And obviously the things with the highest ROI have which by the way, ROI is return on investment, I should point out. The things with the highest ROI are the things that are the most valuable things you can do. So it becomes a measuring stick for measuring different features and which ones you should implement. And you can actually, if you're using something called Agile lean approach, you actually calculate ROI on every use case. And that decides what use cases should be done in which order. So it turns out there are two types of ROI. There's tangible and intangible. Tangible is actually an ROI that you can quantify. So you can actually come up with a value or a number that is related to your cost of the feature, which is your investment. Okay. An intangible benefit is something that can be perceived but not quantified, or is really, really hard to quantify. And I'm going to give examples of both. So tangible things, tangible assets or tangible features. The first one we're going to talk about is increasing close ratios. So the time it takes to close an opportunity, if I can shorten that time, I can calculate how much additional sales we'll have because we've actually are having sales happen faster. Also, if we can increase the close won ratio, if I can have more wins, I can calculate the value of that. The reduction in the time it takes to build out features, that's another ROI component. And the third one is the reduction in discounting on ROI. So again, a lot of times people let the ball drop on a project or an opportunity, or when someone says, come back and talk to me in 2 months, and they forget. A lot of times the way they re-engage the customers through discounting. And obviously, if you're always on top, if you have good CRM and you're always on top of your opportunities, that's not a problem because you don't have to discount as much. The other one is in just a pure increase in sales. We can calculate that. Some others are things like decreasing the time it takes to provide support to your customers or get an answer to them. And then there's a cost associated with more accurate lead scoring as well. And I've got a couple later on I'll bring up, but we don't have formulas for them because they're difficult. But we're going to walk through and actually show you how you would actually calculate the ROI on all of these. Sorry, I'm not responding here. Okay. There's also intangible things. For example, if I have a system and it actually does work for my employees and causes them less stress or makes them more efficient, it's really hard to put a dollar value on that, but there's a positive effect of that. And so you can make attempts on that, and you can get some industry papers, like when we showed you earlier that for every dollar you spend, you get 117 back. That's great. But that's an intangible benefit of an integration, not a tangible benefit, because you can't easily show what it's going to do for you. You can just point to industries. So having a well-defined process, having a uniform customer experience, the quality of life for your employees, improving their quality of life, improving customer satisfaction, all of those have a positive effect on your bottom line, but they're very difficult to quantify. And therefore, we throw them in the intangible category. Let's talk about increasing my close one ratio. So if I have the numbers of the accounts closed, and I have the annual sales revenue per sales rep, and I know the average cost of goods sold for the product, and I'm making a couple assumptions. I'm assuming we're going to have an increase in win rate, and we're going to try to add that to a number. The formula actually is the sales increase is equal to the increase in the win rate times the number of accounts closed in the years times the annual sales revenue per salesperson less the cost of goods sold. So when you multiply that out, again, increase in win rate might be, we're going to increase it by 2% or 0.02. So, I might close 100 deals with a 2% increase. That means I'm closing 2 deals more per year. And if my average deal is 100,000, but it cost me 50,000, right? Then I've essentially added $100,000. And so you can actually calculate, if I'm increasing my close ratio and it costs me 50,000 to do it, then I have, and it's 100,000 in profit, then I have what's called a payback period. How long does it take to pay off that investment? And that payback period would be 6 months. Hopefully that was clear. If I can close things faster, then I have to look at what the value of money is, the average number of sales per salesperson, the annual sales per salesperson. And I'm making some assumptions. By the way, the first one I forgot, I'm making an assumption here that if I'm winning things, I've got a higher win rate, right? I also have to assume that there's always a unlimited number of sales qualified leads for me to go after. That's a hidden assumption in there.
Sam, there was a question on that slide as well. Are you talking about closed opportunities or closed accounts?
Closed opportunities. So this one here is if I close an opportunity faster, again, the assumption is that if I have this information and I have a small increase, let's say I'm taking the time 10% faster. The assumption here is that the salesperson has unlimited leads, and so when they're closing things faster because of automation, they'll also have another lead to follow up on. So you can then calculate that the additional sales in the year is the average number of sales that the salesperson has times the percent increase in the time it takes to close times the average annual sales per salesperson. So again, if I am increasing my number of sales by 2%, I still have to calculate what is the average of annual sales per salesperson to figure out that cost. And we have a calculator we're gonna walk through a little later, show you pieces of this. Software reduction time is pretty straightforward. It's the cost of the developer times the percent of the improvement. So if I can, again, we're making an assumption that either one or two things are going to happen. Either we're going to actually develop more with the same number of developers, or I need less developers. And so if this is the assumption that I'm going to have less developers, so my savings is really the cost of a developer times how much I can improve based on the fact that I'm using a low code tool. So if I can do 3 times the work, I need two less developers, so to speak. And so that's reflected in this cost savings analysis. Reduction in discount, again, like I said before, you're going to find that if you're always engaged with the customer at the appropriate time, and the CRM lets you do that, then it's simply the cost of your annual sales revenue times the marginal increase. And you can calculate that as a reduction in discounting. Again, total increase in sales. If I have expected time improvement in hours per time period and the average sales per year, the assumption is that if a salesperson has more time, they will use it to get more sales. Then that sales increase is simply the average sales per year times the amount of hours saved. And again, I've got that built out in one of my calculators. And then the support time decreases. I'm looking at the average sale for a support analyst, average salary for a support analyst, excuse me, mean time to repair, and the expected new mean time to repair because people are using our tool to do things faster. So the savings is actually the salary times the ratio between what the new mean time to repair is and the old mean time to repair was. And if you can actually say take 10% off the time to repair, you could expect that you would need 10% and less support analysts. Now the assumption there is that that's not really true, because what really happens is you're just reducing the workload on the support analysts. And unless you're in a very large organization where you can cut out one head count, typically you're just retasking what that person does to do other things or adding other things to their job, really. And then more accurate lead scoring. Again, if I have an average salesperson's salary and I look at the time they spend on qualifying leads, and I can figure out what a new time would be qualifying leads because the leads are coming in more qualified, then I'm saving part of that person's salary. And again, the assumption is that if they're spending less time qualifying, they're off trying to sell something else. So the savings is the average person's salary times the ratio of the lead qualification time times the amount of time they're saving. And then two others that are real difficult to actually show, but less errors in data entry can be actually calculated. And it's highly related to the cost of cleaning. And I was actually trying to work out a formula this week, but there wasn't one that I could easily do. And then the errors in quoting, we see this a lot, particularly in configuration. So this is going to cause two problems in your organization. If you give somebody the wrong quote, they're going to be upset with you when you correct it. Okay, so you have two options. Option one is you live with this quote and just consider it a discount, or you just know that you're going to have a dissatisfied customer because you're going to have a poor customer experience. It's hard to really quantify how that is, but that is something that I'm working on, a formula for calculating that. So if you're doing a lean agile approach, you can actually use ROI to calculate the features you implement and then implement them in that order. The caveat is that features have relationships to other features. And so you must maintain a precedence so that if I can't implement campaigns unless I've already implemented leads, for example. So you've got to keep that precedence going. And I'm now going to try to bring up, where did that go? Give me 1 second here. It didn't. Came up on the wrong screen. Now I'm gonna try to make, this is at 200%. Let me know if this needs to be bigger. But let's put some big numbers in here. Let's say your annual company sales is 100 million. And you're doing that with 50 salespeople. Okay. And your win rate is 50%. Actually, let's make it more realistic, 30%. Okay. And you're losing 30% to competitors, and you're losing 40% to no decision, which is actually something you need to consider. Then your salespeople are simply expected to do about 2 million each. And the annual average revenue per account is roughly 20,000. That assumes there's 100 accounts out there. But if there's, say, 50 accounts, okay, then your average revenue just switched to 40. But that means you need 167 opportunities in your pipeline. Okay. So we're going to just do things really simple here. We're going to say, if I have a 30% still lost to competitors, but I bump this up from 30 to 32%. Okay. And my cost of goods sold is 50%. If I can do a 2% improvement, I make $3 million off of that 2% improvement. So getting even a small percentage improvement, okay, that's a 1/10 of, I'm going to actually make that 30.1 so it's easier to see. 1/10 of 1% improvement generates 166,000. So frankly, if it only cost you $30,000 to get 0.1% improvement in your organization, you know, you're having a massive increase in savings. Again, if I can improve the selling time by 1%, again, my cost of goods sold are 50. I increase my net profit by 50,000. And again, with my average cost of goods sold being 50, if I can stop discounting and increase my margins by 0.1 of 1%, I saved 100,000. So in this scenario, just adding processes that help me increase 0.1%, increase the sales time 0.1%, and improve discounting by 0.1%. I saved 316,000. And if I have an administrator overhead cost of 10% to do that, essentially the cost for CRM for each salesperson, I've saved them $13,000. If this is per salesperson, this is the cost. Let's make that smaller because the cost of CRM is not going to be 13,000, but probably say 2,000. Essentially, there's my implementation adjusted gross profit, and basically in 4 months I've gotten return on my investment with these analogies. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually taking all the rest of the tangible values and plugging it into this calculator, and then we'll make it available to everybody. Questions on how amazing CRM is and what win rates and changing win rates can do?